Hey everyone, welcome into Attacking Third, a CBS Sports soccer podcast. I'm Sandra Herrera, lead NWSL writer for CBS Sports. Joined today, as always, by my colleague and co-host Lisa Roman, broadcaster and analyst for CBS Sports. On this segment, we're going to chat about Oil Rain and do a regular season preview. Before we take a deep dive into Oil Rain, let's give you a quick reminder. I just want to let you know, if you leave us a rating and a review on your favorite podcast platform, that helps us out so much here on the show. We're also on YouTube, so please subscribe to us at youtube.com/attacking third. You can get all sorts of exclusive NWSL content, previews, recaps, and interviews right here on Attacking Third. The regular season starts March 25th, and you can watch NWSL matches on Paramount Plus. And we're doing a preview for every single team on podcast and on YouTube. So make sure you tell your friends, tell your family, tell your mom's dog, tell your cousin's cat, tell everybody that you know all about the
It
glorious.
never gets old. You
Tell them
saying
the
that
story
never
of-
gets old.
It doesn't. I'm letting people. I gotta let them know, because you know what? So there's gonna be some folks out there that tune in just to hear about their team. Maybe they
I
haven't
know.
listened to all of the team by team previews that we've done, which makes me a little sad because we're doing a lot of them, 12 of them. But if you're just joining us for your team, the team that you want to follow, and
Hi, welcome.
in this case, OL Rain, welcome. We're excited to chat about all things Pacific Northwest on this episode. Let's talk a little bit about OL Rain. They are taking their first steps into the regular season very soon. They've navigated an interesting offseason and had an interesting preseason. They are reigning Shield winners. Went ahead and snatched that Shield in 2022, a third all-time Shield winning team under head coach Laura Harvey, who is with the team still. This is technically her third consecutive year with
Right.
Olring, but has been with this franchise for a very, very, very long time. Had briefly departed to spend some time with the national team and the senior women's national team program for the United States, but has also coached previously with Utah Royals. But Seattle is home for Laura Harvey, and she is going to get another run with this team in 2023. Some additions on the coaching staff side of things, because they said farewell to longtime assistant coach Sam Lady. He's now the head coach of Houston Dash. So a notable hire is they welcomed back Scott Parkinson as assistant head coach. Very specific title there for Parkinson, heading back to work with Laura Harvey. Had spent some time with her previously with Utah Royals, and now we'll get a chance to lead the team with Harvey in Seattle. This team, we talked about how they're the Shield winners. They finished in 2022 as the number one ranked top team, 11-7-4. Their record, similar to maybe another team, perhaps their rival, Portland Thorns, didn't have to make a lot of changes. I think they had a pretty strong team. I think that's something to be excited about, that you won the Shield, that you have a lot of good players, a good group to go ahead and make another long run in the regular season coming up. So even though they didn't have a ton of work maybe in front of them to do in the offseason, they still made some moves. And we gave them an offseason grade of a B-, which I'm okay with, because listen, they didn't have to make a ton of moves.
Right.
I would have liked to have seen, I don't know, something a little different. And just when I thought they were going to stand pat completely, Laura Harvey went ahead and did what she did on draft day, which is not really humor the draft at all, but go ahead and make a move for an experienced player to bring onto her roster. So let's chat a little bit about some of these additions. They went ahead and they participated in some trades. They got Emily Sonnet from the Spirit. They got Elise Bennett from Kansas City Current. And they went ahead and made an additional signing of a Brazilian international with a midfielder in Luani. Lisa, when we're looking at some of these moves, which one stands out for you the most?
One that stands out to me in terms of the moves that Laura Harvey and OL Reign made is the Emily Sonnet trade from Washington Spirit. This is, I mean, hindsight is always 2020, and Laura Harvey likes her veterans. She likes a defensive backbone that she can have. I mean, look at some of the defenders that are on this OL Reign team in like Lauren Barnes, Lou Barnes, that has been with this team forever. And that's what Laura Harvey likes, right? She wants players that are coming in that already have the experience, already know what it's like, have already seen success, have already seen some heartbreak, and that is an Emily Sonnet through and through. But I think it was maybe a bit more surprising because Washington then lost an Emily Sonnet. They lost a Kelly O'Hara and an Emily Sonnet. But I think in terms of the OL Reign viewpoint, and when I'm looking at it just from their perspective, it's a huge get to get Emily Sonnet to really shore up that back line that has some players, that have already really solidified themselves. I'm looking at a Lauren Barnes, a Sophia Huerta along that back line, and Alana Cook. But now you throw in an Emily Sonnet to that mix. That's like a top-notch World Cup winning back line.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what you want to see on this OL Reign team, because this is a team that we will talk about for the next 30 minutes about how close they have come to winning the NWSL Championship and then how they have fallen short every single time. And it is something that is so bitter in the mouth of someone like a Laura Harvey that has been with this team for so long, someone like a Lauren Barnes, like a Megan Rapinoe, a Jess Fishlock, that all they want is to win. And they've been runners up in 2014, 2015, making it all the way to the final and then falling short. They're coming off of a Shield winning season. The third time they did that, they also did it in 2014 and in 2015, then in 2022, but they have yet to raise the NWSL Championship trophy at the end of it all in November. And that's something that really the only thing that this team has their eyes on. And so getting someone like an Emily Sonnet to shore up that back line, I'm really pleased about it. And then an Elise Bennett trade from Kansas City. I'm really interested to see how this one develops, because Bennett was a rookie for KC and had a breakout year last year, but also at a team and a club that utilized their rookies and didn't treat them like rookies, treated them like veterans and like really good soccer players like they are. And not every club does that. They treat them like rookies because they don't have that professional experience. They don't have the mindset. So that's something that I'm really interested to see how a Sonnet fits into this back line, who she kicks out of spot there, because I don't think if you're Emily Sonnet, you're not going from Washington to OL Reign to ride the bench. And then similarly to an Elise Bennett, how does Bennett fit into what Laura Harvey wants to do this year? But I mean, big gains considering OL Reign lost 0, essentially no one.
I mean, maybe you consider somebody like Sam Lady a loss in terms of what he meant to the club and the franchise. That's probably the most notable, I think, amongst their off-season losses. Number of head coaching positions opened up, and this is someone who had to take over the reign back in 2021 during a specific stretch of time before Laura Harvey actually made her return back with the club from Olympic responsibilities with the women's national team. So we're talking about a very interesting time in Reign history where you've got a longtime head coach who knows the ins and outs of the clubs and the habits of his players, and they weren't exactly getting the results I think that people anticipated for the level of talent that was on the roster. And Sam Lady took over the team after the dismissal of Farid Ben Sidi at the time, and I think effectively turned this team around. Within the weeks long stretch of time, they started picking up results. Laura Harvey made her return. They made a run for the Shield even in 2021,
Yep.
but ended up just short there as well. So this was someone who was at this point in time, I think, on multiple clubs' radar in terms of a possible future head coach. So it's almost not too surprising that eventually he went on to take on a head coaching role, maybe an opportunity that he was looking for quite some time, and now he's got it with Houston Dash. So yeah, I think you could look at that as a significant loss for the team moving forward. But I think they've also, and adjacent to that, they also made a really good hire in Scott Parkinson, someone who's going to come in and be try to be a real players coach and help lead the team with Laura Harvey.
I think that's honestly a bit of a like for like swap there between a Sam Lady and a Scott Parkinson, because they both have experience with Laura Harvey and coaching under her, next to her, experience in the NWSL. I think really a positive move for both sides, right? Sam Lady now gets to be a head coach at a Houston Dash club that made their playoffs for the first time ever in their club history last year. They've got a lot of good pieces that they've pulled together. I think that's a great move for Lady. And I also think this is a good move for Scott Parkinson, a coach that went from assistant coach to head coach to unemployed for a bit, now back to an assistant coach. It's not a lateral move because he lost his head coaching position. So it is a step up to then go from unemployed to assistant coach. But I think that for Scott Parkinson, it's a really good role for where he can be right now, coaching alongside someone like Laura Harvey.
No, I'm with you. I also am just like when they announced his hiring, it also just made me very curious, kind of like perked my ears up a little bit to sort of hear or see the title that it was not just an assistant coach. It's like this is the assistant head coach. So it's not just like first assistant coach or second assistant coach. It's like, okay, this is we're issuing some interesting titles here in light of the addition of Parkinson. But there's also a whole roster that we got to go through. So there's some missing components here that we want to maybe highlight and address and talk about, and players who are no longer with the team and their status is kind of unknown. So we got to go through this whole roster, sort of take a look at the players who have been around, the new additions that have been made, and talk about where we think they might plug in come opening day. So stick with us after a quick break.
Meanwhile, on Paramount Mountain.
Okay, we have the northern face, the southern face, and...
the Sylvester Stallone face. Of course.
Hey, how you doing? How you doing?
Is that Dad? Yeah.
No, don't sneeze.
Dear God, no.
Hold it.
Hold it.
Don't do it. Don't. Ha! Gesundheit. Thank you. You're welcome.
All right, let's chat a little bit about the preseason roster that we saw for OL Reign as they build up to the regular season. 3 goalkeepers, Claudia Dickey, Laurel Ivory, and Fallon Tullis Joyce. Defenders, Lauren Barnes, Rain Brown, Alana Cook, Sam Hyatt, Shay Holmes, Sofia Huerta, Jimena Lopez, Alyssa Mallinson, Phoebe McClernand, Emily Sonnet. 10 defenders for the Reign. Midfielders, 9 with Angelina, Olivia Athens, Marley Canales, Jess Fishlock, Rose LaBelle, Quinn, Nikki Stanton, Olivia Vanderyacht, Natalie Vigiano, and 8 forwards with Bethany Balser, Elise Bennett, Jordan Heidema, Tiara King, Veronica Latsko, Mariah Lee, Megan Rapinoe, and Mackenzie Weinert. Tobin Heath, not named amongst the preseason roster for OL Reign here. One of the players that was listed on the free agency list, and at this point of our recording, still has a little bit of an unknown status. Has not announced a new club team as of this moment, and last we saw an update was from Tobin Heath herself, having gone through a surgery, and so was out for the remainder of the season, and then out for the remainder of the off season. Is back in training, getting back into fitness, but not with the Reign, unfortunately. So curious to see where she will end up in the future in NWSL. But for now, in terms of attacking players who can provide for this team, I mean, I read 8 forwards, Lisa. Who's standing out for you?
I mean, there's so many good forwards on this team. That's it. OL Reign is one of these teams similar to a Portland Thorns that hasn't changed that much, and they're still a powerhouse when I look at it. But of those 8 forwards, I mean, Megan Rapinoe on this list that we saw last year came in and just would notch goal, would notch assist, just consecutive games, especially towards the end of the season. I'm really looking at someone like a Bethany Balser and a Ziara King to take it to the next level this year. I think Bethany Balser is a player that we have seen had some really high highs, some pretty low lows. And last year she evened out towards the top half of the bell curve, I'm going to say, in terms of her production on this roster. But I want to see her take it to the next level and have a little bit more consistency. I'm interested to see how an Elise Bennett fits into this roster. I talked about that earlier because this is a team that already has a Jordan Huitema, a King, a Latsko, a Megan Rapinoe, a Bethany Balcer. Where is Elise Bennett going to fit into that spot? Because I want to see her play. I want to see her get minutes and play. And then, I mean, Jordan Huitema, like I loved watching this player play last year. I think most recently playing with Canada in the She Believes Cup was a little bit hard to see the joy in a Jordan Huitema just with everything happening with Canada soccer. But I think that it's a little bit different when you play with your club. I mean, the firepower that this team has when all of their superstars are on the pitch, which is how we often see Laura Harvey line up. And I mean, looking at a Fallon Joyce in goal that had a breakout year last year, I want to see that continue. Fallon Joyce be a goalkeeper that everyone fears and that consistently keeps OL Reign in games. Then you've got Lou Barnes, Sophia Huerta along the back lines, and then an Emily Sonnet, Jess Fishlock in the midfield. Are you kidding me? A Rose LaBelle, like, this roster is just so stacked.
Yeah.
It is so stacked.
It's look, you look at the names and the preseason roster and even compare it to 2022, and this is a team that is built to make another run. You know, they had a couple important re-signings in their offseason. So while maybe there weren't a ton of blockbuster like free agency signings, they took care of business essentially with some of their veteran players. The re-signings of Lauren Barnes and Megan Rapinoe maybe weren't groundbreaking, earth-shattering, shocking moves for this franchise, but they were still important ones. There's a number of players on this team with Laura Harvey that are still trying to chase that elusive championship. So I think you've got a quartet in Harvey, in Fishlock, in Rapinoe, in Barnes, who are trying to make each other champions, in NWSL essentially. So like I said, like while it might not be like, high, headline, stealing type of signings, they were important signings, I think, in terms of those players and what they have meant to the franchise. I liked the trades, to have someone like an Elise Bennett. To get somebody like an Emily Sonnet did surprise me a little bit.
Yeah.
Because at this point, like we rattled off the position, so you're listing 10 defenders for your preseason, and I think you can go through those 10 defenders and know 4 starters at least automatically, like who we might see on opening day, whether that's a Sophia Huerta, or an Alana Cook, and now you're adding an Emily Sonnet, into that mix. Is she going to start along someone like a Lou Barnes, or how's that going to look? Is she going to start along someone like Alana Cook? Like, where are we going to see Emily Fox for this back line, or excuse me, Emily Sonnet, along this back line for Laura Harvey? Are we going to see her in an outside back position? Because we've seen for the national team matches in 2023 at this point, she's made her return there. And we've seen her feature in multiple areas, whether it's been an outside back or in a center back position. So I'm curious as to how that back line's going to look come opening day. And I'm also equally curious about the midfield as well, because I like the pieces that are in this midfield. It's almost like you go line by line and you can find some example of champagne problems in every single line. You're leaving there's a possibility that they may leave someone off who could be starting somewhere else, essentially.
Exactly. I mean, that's what you have to think about, right? When there's one good player that you're trying to fit into it, you only get 11 starters. You only get 3 or 4 across the back line, 3 or 4 in the midfield, 3 or 2 up top. You have to have a little bit of give and take. And I think, it's hard for Laura Harvey to do when she looks at this roster. It is.
Yeah, it's tough being a player's coach when you got to make those kinds of decisions. In terms of the personnel, on this roster? Who's a young prospect and experienced veteran that we can look to for this team? So who's going to be that young prospect to get in here, get involved, force Laura Harvey to start them? And who is the experienced veteran that we think this team might lean on a little bit? Again, we've been talking a lot about this as an international cycle, players who will be absent, who is someone that the team will likely look to for leadership. Young prospect, I think we're going to go with Elise Bennett in this one. Got acquired out of Kansas City Current, going to enter a sophomore season. Had some really good performances with the Current over the course of Challenge Cup, and then really kind of became this off the bench option for Kansas City when they were maybe going through such a time in a lull or kind of looking stagnant. This was someone that they could bring in and kind of mix things up immediately. She's relentless. I love her work rate. I really am hopeful that she can continue her development with Laura Harvey and OL Reign. But there's some question marks around that for me because we're talking, again, line by line. Who is going to get that time in these starting 11s under Laura Harvey? I'm not too sure, but I hope it's somebody like Elise Bennett.
I don't think it's going to be given to an Elise Bennett. I don't think that what she did last year at Kansas City, playing in 21 of the 22 games, 3 goals, 2 assists on the year for KC. She came in as her role was a super sub. She would come in, provide a spark, the immediate counter press and the ability to score goals. What she did in 2022 as a runner up with Kansas City is not going to get her playing time with Laura Harvey and OL Reign. Even though it might work like that in other clubs and other leagues and other situations, that's just not how it works. So Elise Bennett is going to have to come into OL Reign throughout preseason, throughout their training every day and prove herself, prove why she deserves to start. And Sandra, as we just talked about, this OL Reign roster is stacked across the front line, right? We're just looking at those 7 other forwards that you've got: a Bethany Balser, a Megan Rapinoe, a Jordan Heitema, Ziara King, Veronica Latsko. Where is Elise Bennett going to fit in and who is she going to kick out? And that's something that I want to see from Elise Bennett this year, because I believe she has the confidence in herself as a player to get significant minutes. No, I don't foresee Elise Bennett being a starter on this OL Reign roster. I don't. She wasn't really a starter with Kansas City. Right. She was a super sub off the bench. We're not saying she's going to be the starter and score all the goals. We just
want to see like a next step. That's all.
We want to see a next step from this player. And I think that next step could be proving herself to get some minutes at the start of the season. Can she come in the final 10 minutes of a game? Can she provide that spark for a team? And then can she build that up to be the last 15 minutes, a 60-minute substitute, a 45-minute substitute for this team towards the end of the season as it builds? And I think we'll see the most time from her during a Challenge Cup when there are some holes missing. But I think a player like Elise Bennett is going to have to really trying to be a sponge in this environment with Laura Harvey, with all of the veterans that are on this roster that she can learn from. I mean, imagine you're a young player that now gets to go learn from a Jess Fishlock, a Megan Rapinoe, a Rose Lavelle. Jess Fishlock is one that's going to have to step up as an experienced veteran, not going to the World Cup this year with Wales, not playing internationally. Jess Fishlock is going to be the one to drive this team to the top of the standings and then throughout this regular season.
Yeah, look, we chatted a little bit about Lauren Barnes and Megan Rapinoe as those important veteran re-signings out of free agency. And I think it's easy to look at a big name like Megan Rapinoe or another longtime veteran of the franchise and Lauren Barnes and say, hey, maybe this is the player that they lean on or look to for that kind of veteran experience. But again, this is a player. Megan Rapinoe is a player that we anticipate will likely be absent during stretches of this season due to World Cup responsibility. And I think it's good to go with Jess Fishlock because this is a player I think that has often found herself in a little bit of a leadership role with the team during stretches of time throughout the history of the franchise. Mm-hmm. I mean, she's the 2021 MVP. And this is absolutely someone that some of the younger players or even sophomore players or third-year players are likely to look to in terms of professionalism and work rate on and off the pitch. So I think that's going to the spotlight might be a little bigger on her in a World Cup year, because the Reign are likely to miss so many players during the World Cup. We've been chatting all about it. Players who might be absent for their club for extended periods of time. And OL Reign are one of the teams that will probably miss 5 or more players to the World Cup. No final rosters just yet, but here are a slew of names for you to be on the watch. Alana Cook, Sofia Huerta, Emily Sonnet, Rose Lavelle, Megan Rapinoe, all representing United States women's national team. But you've also got Jordan Huitema and Quinn representing Canada's national team. So again, anywhere from possibly 4 to 5 through 7 possible players
Massive.
who might be absent. And look, we don't even know. We're not too sure of the status for somebody like Angelina. Unfortunately, she suffered a season-ending injury, but prior to suffering that injury, was getting call-ups with the Brazilian national team. Curious about where somebody like their recent signing, Lueni, will have final standing with Brazil's national team as well. Who's going to be on that final roster for Brazil? So there's some question marks there as well. There's an opportunity here for a lot of players.
5 to 7 to 9 players potentially being absent for a good chunk of the summer. And yes, the way that the scheduling worked out, the most of the Challenge Cup games will be played during the World Cup window. That is July 20th to August 20th. But man, these are some big names. Starters for club, starters for country, right? So big influential players. Yes, the Emily Sonnet getting traded from Washington to OL Reign, but it's a tough, top-notch group to be kind of in contention and in consideration with. I mean, there's a lot. 5 United States players that are potentially going to Australia and New Zealand for the World Cup. I mean, there's a lot of international players, a lot of holes that Laura Harvey has to try to fill at the start of the season, right? Like that's how you build these players up that are younger and maybe not going to get all those minutes. We don't traditionally see that with Laura Harvey. We don't. We see the stars play, the first team play for the majority of it until they're unavailable. But I think it all kind of has to come down to the goal for this season for this team, which kind of coincides with our biggest burning question, because you and I aren't sitting in those OL Reign locker rooms right now. We're not at preseason in Seattle with this team, but we know that everything on their mind is, can we win an NWSL championship?
I say it every year. I say, yeah, they can. OL Reign was my team to pick for the championship.
They can do it. They just choke every year. What's happening?
Look, it's
a brain fart at the end of the season every single year for this team.
It's also just, I think it's also just the grind that it takes to run a table in general, but to run the table in NWSL is very, very difficult. I mean, this is a league that has been home to several international players since its foundation. And we hear all the time, there's always that chatter about what's the best league in the world and all that. And every single league in the world is going to try to claim that to fame. But when it comes to asking that question of which is the most competitive, very rarely do you find a lot of debate around NWSL. That it is very difficult to run the table and win the Shield. And the Reign have done that 3 times, and they've done that under Laura Harvey. But this is America, man. We love championships. We love home runs, touchdowns, and who wants to see some dingers? It's a playoff format. It's a championship run. It's the biggest event that closes out and marks the end of a regular season, and it is a title that this franchise is still chasing. So, will this be the year in 2023? I'll say it again. I'll say, yeah, it can be. Can this be the year? That's the question. If the question is, can they finally win an NWSL championship? Yes, I'll just say yes, because I've said it in other years prior, and I feel similarly this year that they could have enough pieces here and go on a long run and make their return to the postseason and try to contend for a championship. Now, whether they get it done or not, is going to be on them.
On paper, in theory, yes, they can do it, but it comes down to between the ears for this team.
Yeah.
It does. It really does come down to it, and being able to focus on those final stretches.
We've got them as contenders.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we've got them as contenders. That's our projected finish for this team in 2023. Whether it ends in a championship or a shield or a challenge cup is going to, obviously depend on the team and the staff. But in terms of their finish, we absolutely have them as one of the top 3 teams in 2023. And of course, we'll be here through it all, through the regular season to take a look and see if that comes true.
Top 3 teams now that we've run through most of the previews at this point. It's Portland Thorns, OL Reign, Kansas City Current.
Boom.
There are top 3 contenders for 2023. We'll see if OL Reign can do it. Win that championship finally.
And listen, I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it. I'd love to chat about it. I'd love to talk about it all here on Attacking Third with you, Lisa. Thanks, everybody. That's all we've got for you today. Thanks for joining us on Attacking Third. Download, follow, listen to us anywhere you get your podcast. You can watch us too. Subscribe to us on YouTube to get alerts for whenever we go live at youtube.com/Attacking Third. And we'll be back with more team-by-team previews for the 2023 season. It kicks off March 25th on Paramount Plus. For Sandra Herrera and Lisa Roman, this was Attacking Third.